Week 1 of Tarkir spoilers are almost over, and despite a lead-up filled with leaks and a massive day 1 filled with some real game changers, the last few days haven't been as heavy-hitting. We've seen mostly draft chaff and bulk rares, but amongst all the trash, there has been a few cards that stick out. Alongside the reveal of some tapped triomes, we got a new cycle of rare lands that can enter untapped. The gimmick here is that they enter untapped as long as you control one of 2 different colored land types. They also have an alternative casting ability, such as the black one, which can exile a creature from your grave to give you a 1/1 spirit. This pairs nicely with cards like Ketramos as a way to generate card advantage and also give you a creature too. But the real standout of the bunch is the blue land, Mistrise Village, which, for 1 extra mana, can let you cast your next spell without it being countered. Cavern of Souls is an expensive card, allowing you to cast creatures without being countered, and is almost single-handedly responsible for counter magic not being as common in Standard. With Mistrise Village, you can now, for 2 extra mana, safely cast any non-creature spell. This is especially important for decks trying to win slow games, allowing you to cast your win cons, like Breach the Multiverse and Jace the Perfected Mind, without being denied. Negate is a really common sideboard card, specifically added to address these kind of cards, and I think that this village could absolutely shut that down. The effect might seem narrow, but being a land that can more often than not enter untapped means that the opportunity cost to run this card is minimal, as it effectively stands in for an island. But that wasn't the only tool that Teemo picked up today. Dragonback Assault is a 6-mana mythic enchantment that first wipes the board, then creates a dragon for every time you play a land. In any other colors, 6 mana to deal 3 is likely too slow, but thanks to the immense amount of ramp available to you in green, you can look to try and get this out sooner. In fact, players playing this will probably be trying to maximize this, looking to get landfall triggers and ramp to 6 as fast as possible so they can get this out. In addition, being a blue card too, you can easily run it alongside copy spells, like the aptly named Copy Enchantment. Not only dealing 3 damage to everything again, since the enchantment enters the battlefield as a copy, but you also get to double your landfall triggers, meaning that every land will then give you 2 4/4 dragons. While its applications in decks are certainly more narrow because of its colors, I do expect we're going to see this in commander decks and standard decks dedicated to maximizing this card. Next on our list today is a very unorthodox card that could either be the weakest card of the set or the most broken. There's going to be no in between for this thing. The Sib Sig Ceremony requires you to spend exactly 3 black mana to put it into play to make all your creatures cost 2 less to cast. In addition, however, any and all creatures you cast are destroyed immediately, and you get a 2/2 zombie in its place. This card is a puzzle waiting to be solved, where the player who does may find themselves with one of the most powerful decks in recent history. But how do you abuse and take advantage of an effect like this? The first thing to note is that the card destroys the creature. If you play a creature with Indestructible, you can prevent this effect and you get a free 2/2 for your trouble. Being a card heavily in black, however, you're quite limited in what indestructible creatures you can play. Ketramos stands out as a possible contender. In Standard, there's also Barbed Servitor, which is a stuffy doll in black that can be reduced to 2 mana with this card, which may have some potential as well. But also outside Indestructible, there are a few other interactions that are worth noting. Overlord of the Balemerc can be cast for 1 mana instead with its alternative casting cost, which, if I'm also reading correctly, won't be destroyed since it won't actually come in as a creature. In addition, you can also reanimate creatures, which won't be destroyed since the effect specifies you need to cast the card, meaning returning it from the grave, like most reanimation cards do, will get around this. Gravecrawler can also be repeatedly cast to create a 2/2 zombie over and over again. It also goes infinite with Mer Retriever, making the card free. As long as you have 2 copies of it, you can have them repeatedly die and target each other for infinite zombies. I also have a feeling this is just the start of the applications for this card, so if you manage to find any copies of this, I would not be putting them with your bulk. You can also pair Sib Sig Ceremony with another card on our list today, Imperonation. This can 1, bring back any permanent, meaning you can get around the cast trigger. Not just a creature, however, you can also give whatever you choose to bring back hexproof and indestructible permanently. Being in green, you can also look to ramp this card out quicker than normal. So the question is, what are you bringing back? If you want to be especially vile, you can bring back Navinral's Disc and repeatedly destroy everything every turn. If you actually want to play the game, however, I'm thinking of a card such as Platinum Angel or any other card that has "you can't lose the game, your opponents can't win the game" written on it. In Standard, however, this card suffers from the existence of Sunfall, like many good cards, though it won't be around for much longer, so maybe once Sunfall rotates out, Parination will have its day in the sun. Our last card today is an uncommon that could be a serious overperformer in any aggro or token deck. Descendant of Storm was a card leaked in a different language, so I've translated it as a custom card here. It's a 1-drop with aggressive stats that can be activated to either buff it up or create a 1/1. This card reminds me a lot of Hired Claw, a similar 1-drop able to be buffed for the same mana cost. While it lacks the damage potential of the Claw, I believe it makes up for it in the token generation part. Cheap creatures with abilities are generally powerful, giving you a way to spend your mana without needing to commit additional cards. Descendant of Storms is the cheapest way now to make multiple bodies for token decks and aristocrat sacrifice decks. I'll be picking up a few copies of this myself to experiment, given the recent history as well of uncommons in sets spiking due to the lower availability as a result of more of them being in each set. So in other words, there's more uncommons in each set, and therefore you have less of a chance of actually hitting this specific uncommon. I'll be looking at Descendant as a possible card to scoop up quick. That'll wrap up today's reviews. There was a lot of reveals to sift through, but these were the standouts. Let me know if there's any other cards you think that were worth covering, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.